You are listening to the Glenn Beck Radio Program podcast.
Forgetting Valentine's Day is just about as bad as, maybe even worse, than forgetting her birthday or your anniversary. You forget Valentine's Day in your toast. In fact, do it right now. Get a dozen assorted roses with a free glass vase for $19.99, or double the roses, 2 dozen roses, and the premium vase for $9.99 more. It's easy. It's quick. It's proflowers.com. They will deliver on Valentine's Day, guaranteed. And you can't beat the price or the convenience. Choose the delivery date. You want it on Valentine's Day? You want it the day before Valentine's Day? You choose. But order right now. Here's the way you can get the limited time Valentine's deal: 1 dozen assorted roses with a free glass vase, $19.99, or upgrade to 2 dozen assorted roses with a premium vase for $9.99 more. 1-800-PRO-FLOWERS, 1-800-PRO-FLOWERS, or proflowers.com. Click on the blue microphone to the top hand corner and type in my name, Glenn. Proflowers.com. Click on the microphone, type in Glenn. Order today. Deal expires Friday at midnight.
What you're about to hear is the fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Well, Senator Ted Cruz is going to be joining us in just a few minutes. He is... He is going over some of the things that the president has done just to the state of Texas. The state of Texas has been forced to file multiple lawsuits to prevent the administration from encroaching on powers reserved for the states. And he's going to take us through all of these cases. Obamacare's conditions on Medicaid funding are unconstitutional. Department of Justice imposed unconstitutional pre-clearance on Texas redistricting plans. The Department of Interior imposed unlawful moratorium on offshore drilling. The EPA tried to expand its power by regulating greenhouse gases. Department of Education illegally withheld from Texas $830 million in education funding. EPA tried to override Texas program for incentivizing facilities to voluntarily comply with air permit regulations. EPA unlawfully blocked Texas air permitting program. EPA imposed a cross-state air pollution rule. A cross-state air pollution rule. Department of Commerce agency unlawfully promulgated. Thank you. An emergency fishing rule in the Gulf of Mexico. Federal agency.
I don't know about hardly any of these.
I know. Federal agency illegally ordered pipelines to report interstate business activities.
Jeez.
So he's going to go. He's here with us now. Senator Ted Cruz is here to tell us a little bit about some of these things that are expanding federal power beyond anybody's wildest imagination. Senator, how are you, sir?
I'm doing terrific. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you for spending the time with us. I think we have you for, 40 minutes?
I am happy to stay as long as you like.
Okay. Well, we'll check with your people. I know you are on a tight schedule. So just somebody, Keith, let me know how long we have. But I wanted to go through these, and if you will tell us the story and tell us what your plan is now.
Well, sure, and let me put this into context. So I serve as the ranking member, the senior Republican, on the Senate Judiciary Committee's subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Human Rights. And in that capacity, we have issued a series of reports. This is the third in a series of reports laying out the president's overbroad assertions of federal power. And so earlier reports, for example, detailed that since January 2012, 9 separate times the Obama administration has advocated for very broad views of federal power and has been unanimously reversed by the U.S. Supreme Court. and it just goes through. It's really a striking series of advocating for extreme federal power and getting rejected. So this report is the third in that series, and this report just focuses on the litigation with the state of Texas, and it outlines, as you read through a moment ago, 10 separate cases where the Obama administration has advocated consistently for overbroad federal power, and over and over again, the courts keep rejecting what the Obama administration is doing, and it doesn't seem to stop the Obama administration at all. They just keep asserting power that exceeds the Constitution, that exceeds federal statute, that exceeds the law.
I have to tell you, Senator, I've never heard anything so outrageous as what happened with, was it Wyoming? It was Wyoming or Montana, where the
Wyoming.
Wyoming, where they just took
a million
acres, a million acres from the state, and gave it to the Native Americans. Just gave it.
There is a pattern of lawlessness in this administration that is breathtaking. And, one of the, I think, great services you do is spending a lot of time focusing your listeners, your viewers, on the Constitution, on the founding principles that made this country great. And central to all of those principles is the idea of rule of law, that we are ruled by laws and not men, and no man is above the law. And we have never seen a president like President Obama who, if he doesn't agree with a federal law, he refuses to enforce it, and he openly defies it over and over and over again. He simply disregards the law, and that ought to concern everybody, not just Republicans, but Democrats, independents, libertarians. Unchecked power in the presidency, an imperial presidency, is fundamentally inconsistent with individual liberty. And what is striking as this keeps going on and on and on is where are the Democrats? Where is the media? Where is anybody actually standing up for rule of law and the Constitution?
I have to tell you, I spoke at a GOP event over the weekend, and I quite honestly asked the same thing about the Republicans. If John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and that ilk actually believed in the things that they said they believed in, if they believed in the Constitution, we would have special investigators left and right, because we have seen the violation of the Constitution over and over and over again. I mean, even to the point, forget about all of the spying and everything else.
Right.
We're even just dancing all over the preamble as well. I mean, I'm sorry, are we trying to promote domestic tranquility? I mean, that's one of the things we're trying to do by setting up this government is to be able to ensure domestic tranquility. We've got a president that is pitting everyone against each other and doing the exact opposite of even the preamble. So the whole thing is on fire.
That is exactly right, and these assertions of power are brazen.
But where are, I mean, you're coming as a Republican, but don't you think that we should stop trying to triangulate on what's a winning situation? I mean, is there ever a point that somebody stands up and says, okay, I mean, enough is enough?
There ought to be, and the irony is that standing for principle is also a winning strategy. I mean, if we simply stand up for the Constitution, if we do the right thing, good policy produces good politics, and sometimes people in Washington don't seem to understand that if you actually honor your commitment to your constituents, if you stand up and fight for liberty, that is also, if Republicans want to win in November, that's how we win in November, is stand for principle.
I said that on Saturday night, and I think it might have gotten a standing ovation when I said, if you pick Boehner and Lindsey Graham and John McCain and all those guys, you will lose. But if you pick Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, people who will stand for the Constitution, you'll win in a big way. And it's not your personality. I mean, I met you, Senator, we're friends, and you're not the most electric guy out there, It is that what causes people to pay attention is you are willing to stand, not to win, but you're willing to stand because the Constitution demands it. Your oath demands it. So where are the rest of the Republicans when your oath demands it?
Well, I'm hopeful that we will begin seeing more and more people standing up. And at the end of the day, the truth is liberating. And let's be clear. Glenn, you were not shy about calling Republican presidents to account when they abuse their power. And that's the difference here, and nor have I been. As you know, I have been very vocal and indeed represented the state of Texas before the U.S. Supreme Court against President George W. Bush when he exceeded his authority in trying to order the state courts to obey the World Court in the Medellin case.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court struck down the president's order as exceeding.
Wow, excuse my ignorance. Hang on just a second. Excuse my ignorance for not knowing that was you on that case. Congratulations and thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Ted, for that.
Well, it's just standing up for the Constitution and the principles we believe, and it ought to be commonplace. It ought to be what everyone's doing. I mean, there should be 435 members of the House and 100 senators all standing together and saying that the Constitution.
So let me ask you this. I'm seeing, I'm watching what I can of the State of the Union. And when he says, and I will act without you because I have a pen,
right,
and I will just act without you, to see Congress, I mean, the entire system is built knowing that men will protect their own power.
Right.
And so, you protect each branch because the founders said, these guys are going to be greedy and power hungry, and they're going to protect their own turf because nobody wants their own power taken away from them. And here they stand up and say, yes, make me completely irrelevant. Yes.
It was breathtaking, and you're exactly right. I mean, you go back to the Federalist Papers and the ideas that power is divided because factions will battle with each other and that tension will protect the liberty of the people. You've got congressional Democrats who are willingly ceding Congress's authority to the president.
What happened? How did that happen?
Look, the only explanation I can give is the ends justify the means, and it's all political to them. They agree with what he's doing, and so there is no responsible answer. Let's take, for example, a case that just a couple of weeks ago was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court, which is a case challenging the president's illegal appointment of members of the National Labor Relations Board. Now, the Constitution gives the president the authority to make recess appointments. When the Senate's in recess, he can make appointments that are not subject to Senate confirmation. What President Obama did that no president before him has ever done is he declared he has the ability to say when the Senate's in recess, and he announced the Senate is in recess when the Senate itself was meeting and wasn't in recess. And he made these appointments in a way that 43 presidents preceded him. None of the prior presidents ever made this absurd claim that the president can declare the Senate to be in recess when it's not, and the Senate disagrees. 3 different federal courts of appeals have ruled that the president's appointments during the recess, when the Senate was not on recess, that those appointments were unconstitutional. And the administration brazenly ignores those decisions and just keeps on going. And it's now before the U.S. Supreme Court. I think it is likely the Supreme Court will agree with 3 different federal courts of appeals that it was unconstitutional. But I think the administration's view is, maybe a court will stop them here or there, but if they push on every front all the time, they can't stop all of it. And what was striking is, where were the Democrats? Because when the president seizes the ability to declare the Senate in recess when we're not and takes away our ability to confirm or not confirm nominees, it undermines a core constitutional responsibility of the Senate. And there was a time not long ago when there would be lions of the Senate, Democrats, who would have stood, Robert Byrd would have lit his hair on fire.
I know.
At seeing the Senate's prerogatives of confirmation taken away And when the president does this, Harry Reid, as majority leader, happily goes along, and every Senate Democrat marches in line.
Do you think that they are they're just for the fundamental transformation of the system? Because they're playing with no foresight at all. If the next person that gets in is Chris Christie,
right,
they're not going to like all of that power. Neither am I. I mean, I'm going to stand against Chris Christie as well. But they're not going to like all that power because, and I'm so afraid of a Republican getting in and going, yeah, well, you know what? It's payback. And we're going to use all of these same tricks and all of the same tools and all of the same levers. And they will enslave people just as much as the right is, or the left is, just in a different way. Is there no one on the left that understands that? Or are they just thinking that America is over as we know it in the next few years, and they don't have to worry about it?
Glenn, it is a terrific question. I don't have a good answer to it. It is a point that I made just recently in an editorial I wrote in the Wall Street Journal on the imperial presidency, where I made the exact same point that listen, as the scriptures say, there came a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph and his children. For all of those on the left who are willing to excuse the president's lawlessness and disregarding federal law, there will come another president, and there will come another president of the other party. And if you take, for example, the second of the three reports that we put out from the Constitution Subcommittee, the Judiciary Committee, focused on the lawlessness just in implementing Obamacare, because Obamacare has been the embodiment of lawlessness in terms of the administration illegally granted an exemption for small business, illegally granted an exemption for Congress, instructing private insurance companies to violate the law and issue plans that are made illegal in the text of the law. But, the point I made, let's take the exemption for big business. The text of the statute says big business has to comply with the employer mandate on January 1st, 2014, a date that is obviously come and gone. That's a tax mandate. The president unilaterally said, no, I'm granting a one-year waiver to big business, even though I have no authority to do that. As I pointed out in the Wall Street Journal op-ed, nothing would stop the next president, a Republican, from changing other tax laws or labor laws or environmental laws. And, for example, suppose the next president said, well, President Obama said he's not going to enforce tax laws he disagrees with, and he's just going to change them. Suppose the next president says, I'm instructing the Treasury Department we will no longer collect taxes at a higher rate than 25%. Now, that happens to be policy I agree with. I'd love to see us move towards tax reform and simplifying taxes and lowering the top rates. I think it'd be very pro-growth. And yet that would be an extraordinarily bad outcome from the perspective of the Constitution and the protection of the liberty of the people.
It'd be total lawlessness. Then you would really, all that would matter is who is president of the United States, and you better hope to God you like him or he likes you.
If a president can pick and choose which laws to follow, he's no longer a president. And that's dangerous, and it ought to be.
Let's leave it at that. I just like to let that sit there for a second. We'll come back with Ted Cruz in just a second.
Oh, here I am. Hello, America.
The Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
My wife and I have decided that Valentine's Day is a stupid, stupid holiday. And actually, no, I've decided it was a stupid, stupid holiday. She has grown to accept that I'm not going to do anything great on Valentine's Day because there's too much pressure. And so what we've come to is freshly dipped gigantic berries from Sherry's Berries. They're starting at $19.99. Now that's over a 40% savings. You can also double the berries for just $10 more. They're dipped in white milk and dark chocolatey goodness. I mean, it is really good. 40% off now from Sherry's Berries. In the old days, we would have thought, oh, this is so romantic. Now we sit around the kitchen and we just open the box and we eat them. and laugh at ourselves. It's Sherry's Berries. Call 866-FRUIT-02. 866-FRUIT-02. Or go to BERRIES.com. That's berries.com. Click on the microphone. Type in my name, Glenn. Order today. Berries.com.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
We're going to talk to Senator Ted Cruz at the bottom of the hour a little bit more. I think what he just said is the best explanation for why you need to pay attention to the president just going around the laws and picking and choosing. Because if the next president happens to be a Republican and he says, you know what, we're not going to enforce the tax code, you don't have to pay any taxes over 25%, and there's no problem with it. We're just not going to enforce it, so don't pay any taxes over 25%. How would you feel? I mean, I'd feel good, but I'd be torn because also that's a violation of the Constitution, and I would fight against it. We are a nation of laws and not of men. Washington better wake up.
Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
Alpha Tax Extreme Beam. We have these up at our house in the mountains, and I'm telling you, I can practically see the top of the mountain with this Extreme Beam. First of all, the company believes in truth, freedom, and liberty, and they spread the gospel around the globe by using light. It's a great company, and their LED flashlights are hand-built and virtually indestructible. They're focusable, they're waterproof, they're weapon-mountable, their battery life is the best in the class, and best of all, their beam goes thousands of feet. It outperforms every other flashlight on the market. It is truly a remarkable flashlight. Military and police teams from all over the world depend on Extreme Beam's top performance and reliability, and so does my family. They have a lifetime warranty, and you get 15% off when you use the promo code GLENN. Go to extremebeam.com now and see them in person at Sportsman's Warehouse stores nationwide. Extreme Beam, truly shining a light in the face of darkness.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
That was Senator Ted Cruz, who has just issued the third report, the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Human Rights. The third report on the assault on state rights and expanding of federal power by this administration. And I want you to know that Senator Cruz is not somebody who's just got into the Senate and is now standing up and is changing his position. This guy has been there for a very, very long time, just not in Washington. And even I didn't realize and connect the dots. He's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, one of the main things that I remember Ted from was, because I was in Texas at the time, was Ted was the Texas Solicitor General when Texas went to the Supreme Court to argue the Jose Medellin case. He was the illegal alien who has brutally raped and murdered two teenage girls. You can't even tell the story. It's so awful.
Ted, I have to tell you, I was standing backstage with Marcus Luttrell. We were doing a show. Remember, it was a Common Sense tour. We did the show.
Right.
And the governor came. Marcus Luttrell was there, and we were standing backstage. And I said, what is going to happen in that case? You are not going to obey the World Court and this administration, are you? And this is when Bush was president.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, no, that's not going to stand. And he said, believe me, he said, I will not stand down. And he said, we have the best Solicitor General in the United States on the case, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and because the president, who was Bush at the time, sided with Mexico in the World Court. And then,
so what's the difference between that and what this president is doing?
Well, look, that was exceeding his power. And in that instance, Texas stood up against the President of the United States.
And there was a stay on his execution. There was a stay. Right. Mexico was trying to get a stay on the execution of Jose Medellin, who had 20 years before, it was almost 20 years, murdered these two teenage girls.
It was a horrible crime. He had confessed to it. And what happened is Mexico had sued the United States before the World Court, and the World Court had issued an order that tried to order the U.S. justice system to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers across the country. It's the first time in the history of our nation that a foreign court has tried to bind the U.S. justice system. And then, unfortunately, the president compounded the problem by issuing effectively an executive order that attempted to order the state courts to obey that world court decision. And Texas, look, it was an unusual situation for Texas to stand up and fight the President of the United States, particularly when he was the former governor of our state and a Republican. And yet I was very proud of my boss, Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott, because he said, let's go and do the right thing. And on behalf of Texas, I went before the Supreme Court and argued, number one, the World Court and United Nations have no jurisdiction, no authority to bind our justice system. And number two, the President of the United States has no authority under the Constitution to give away U.S. sovereignty and to make our justice system subject to the World Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court agreed with Texas across the board, struck down the World Court order and struck down the President's order and upheld our sovereignty.
All right. By the way, just a programming note, Greg Abbott is going to be here in studio with us on hour number 3 because now the gentleman Ted was just talking about is running for governor of Texas. And we wanted to have a chat with him, and so he's going to be coming in here in just about an hour and 15 minutes or so.
Terrific. So, he's a very good man.
So, Senator, you put this report out. It's the third one. Nobody's going to report on it. Nobody's going to pay attention to it. What do we have to do? What are your hopes when you go to sleep at night and you get down on your knees, and I know you do, you pray, and you say, Lord, please open the American people's eyes or motivate them to what?
Well, the truth cuts through, and you're speaking out. I'm doing my best to speak out. More and more people are beginning to speak out, and I think it is resonating with the American people. The lawlessness and the abuse of power. You look, for example, at the IRS targeting of conservative groups. Last week, Eric Holder testified in front of the Judiciary Committee. And I took the opportunity to question this administration's lawlessness. 8 months ago, both Eric Holder and President Obama said they were angry and outraged that the IRS had wrongfully targeted conservatives and Obama's political enemies. In the 8 months that have followed, nobody's been indicted. Lois Lerner, the head of the group doing this, has pleaded the fifth.
President said yesterday with Bill O'Reilly or on Super Bowl Sunday that there's not one iota of corruption there. That it was just
not a smidgen.
It was knucklehead moves.
But here's the most staggering thing: we've now learned that the lawyer in charge of the investigation at the Department of Justice is a partisan Obama donor, a major donor who's given over $6,000 to President Obama and the Democrats. And so I asked Eric Holder. I said, listen. Attorneys general in both parties have had the courage to stand up to the presidents who appointed them and appoint special prosecutors. Elliot Richardson stood up to President Nixon, appointed Archibald Cox, and Janet Reno stood up to Bill Clinton and appointed Robert Fisk, and both Democrats and Republicans. And I asked Eric Holder, will you demonstrate the same independence, the same integrity your predecessors have?
No.
And he just boldly, his view is the same as look, when President Obama goes on Bill O'Reilly and says there's not a smidgen of corruption, and I know because I appointed an Obama donor to lead the investigation and make sure nothing was uncovered. I mean, that's just laughing at the American people.
Well, I think they do that a lot. Senator, could I ask if your office or somebody could make a list? You just, I think, made one of the best cases against this lawlessness and this unchecked power. Could you just have somebody in your office make a list for the Democrats if you get a Republican in and they're a progressive Republican, somebody that believes in using all of this government. This is what he can do because of the precedence that has been set right now by our president. Not changing anything else, just using the same levers of power. These are the things that he can do, and you're going to need to sit down and take it. So, yeah. I mean, because I think that's the case that needs to be made. It is bad no matter which side has this power.
And if the media were doing their job,
they would do this.
They would be screaming. Look, as I asked Eric Holder, would you trust John Mitchell to investigate Richard Nixon? I mean, if this were Richard Nixon and not Barack Obama, it'd be front page of every newspaper every single day. And instead, the media whitewashes it and ignores it. Now let me say one thing for your listeners, which is that I want to encourage folks to go to a website that we have that is makedclisten.org, makedclisten.org, and it's an opportunity for people to go and talk about which abuse of power, which challenge facing the country you think is the highest priority, whether it's standing up to the IRS abuse of power, whether it's appointing a joint select committee to investigate Benghazi, whether it is repealing Obamacare, whether it is protecting our privacy. And what we're trying to do, you ask what can we do about it? The answer is not going to come from Washington. It's going to come from empowering the American people. And so I devote the majority of my time to trying to take the case to the American people, to energize the American people. So I would urge folks, go to makedclisten.org, makedclisten.org, and tell your story. You can upload your story about how Obamacare is impacting you and speak out. That's the only way we'll turn it back, is if the American people speak out and demand accountability from elected officials in both parties.
I appreciate it. We're going to pass on some information of a guest that I had on last night that nobody wants to pay attention to, a woman who has the most incredible story you've ever heard on the effects of Obamacare, and she's riveting. We had her on last night, and you should meet her because she's quite impressive. And
I look forward to doing so.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Bye-bye.
You bet. Bye-bye. Senator Ted Cruz.
We should quickly point out Senator Cruz is going to appear on For the Record. The episode, I think, comes up a week from this Wednesday, but it's new information on the Fort Hood massacre.
Oh, my gosh. Is that coming next Wednesday?
It's next Wednesday.
I will tell you that we've been working on this Fort Hood story for quite some time. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of new information out there, and this episode will make your head explode.
Yeah.
Really bad. For the very first time, some of these guys are speaking out. They have been silenced. They have, and they have remained silent, some of them, for too long, and some of them have been silenced. And the information that we have, anew For the Record, this is 60 Minutes when 60 Minutes actually meant something. It is the Blaze investigative journalist arm, and it is a powerhouse. And is it a week from Wednesday?
It's a week from Wednesday, yeah. You can go to theblaze.com/For the Record and get the information.
Yeah,
there.
You can also watch all of the old episodes of it, and you'll learn more from For the Record than I think you'll learn from watching hours and hours and hours of any network on TV.
Let me tell you something, Glenn.
888-727-BECK.
Get off my phone!
The Blaze Radio Network.
The Glenn Beck Program.
There were two stories that we had on the TV show at 5 o'clock last night that are remarkable. I mean, last night was one of the best shows we've done in a long time. I think it was, we started with what makes people die for a cause. Is it a state? Is it a country? Or is it something bigger than that? And I contend it's something bigger than that. And I read a letter from Davy Crockett, and I had pieces from Chris Kyle that we showed, and Marcus Luttrell, and some just amazing heroes, and then a Davy Crockett letter that I don't know if anybody has really, at least who's gone to a public school. You don't know about this Davy Crockett letter, and it is right where we are right now. And it's when he left for Texas. He's like, I've had enough. And it's exactly where America is and what you're feeling right now. And so you have to figure out what those principles are. And we talked about that last night. And then not give up. And I introduced you to a kid. He has no arms. He's 14 years old, no arms. He just went with his football team for a state champion, and the state championship up in Rhode Island. And he's a kicker, and he actually wants to be. Is it a defensive linebacker? Somebody who's defensive linebacker. He said, I have the advantage because you can't grab onto anything. I can just spin and you can't grab onto anything. I'm just like a straw running down the field. But he's really truly an amazing kid, and he was talking about how he won't give up. And I said to him, "Where did this come from?" His mother was on set. And he said, well, and he rolls his eyes. He's 14 years old. He rolls his eyes. Well, it's because Mom, said, I can't means I won't. And she's just trying to make sure that I do it myself. Now, if somebody drops a backpack, or if he drops a backpack, he'll come and somebody will have to pick it up. Somebody will pick it up for him. He actually takes it and throws it back down on the ground. He doesn't want any. He said, I hate pity. I have to play this kid for you. As he's talking about this, I said, we got to thank your mom, because your mom is amazing, amazing. When the interview was over, I said, so where do you guys go from here? Going back home? She said, no, we have to go to the hospital. I said, what? She told me another story that is more compelling than her son. Everything makes sense. And she didn't tell me in advance because she didn't want to overshadow the story of her son with his arms and his willingness. And I said that, but this is a big part of this story. She said, well, maybe you can tell it tomorrow. So I will give you the rest of the story coming up after the top of the hour. The other thing that we had a woman from California who is truly remarkable. I was just talking to Ted Cruz. We have to tell her story as well. She's a woman with a brain tumor, and she was working things out with Kaiser, her insurance company, but then Obamacare kicked in. She's been dumped into Obamacare. She can't get a response in California from the exchanges. She's called and called and called. Can't even get them on the line. And her premiums have now gone down by $14, but her copay has gone up over $2,000. Wait until you hear this story. You read about it at theblaze.com.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
Forgetting Valentine's Day is just about as bad as, maybe even worse, than forgetting her birthday or your anniversary. You forget Valentine's Day in your toast. In fact, do it right now. Get a dozen assorted roses with a free glass vase for $19.99, or double the roses, 2 dozen roses, and the premium vase for $9.99 more. It's easy. It's quick. It's proflowers.com. They will deliver on Valentine's Day, guaranteed. And you can't beat the price or the convenience. Choose the delivery date. You want it on Valentine's Day? You want it the day before Valentine's Day? You choose. But order right now. Here's the way you can get the limited time Valentine's deal. 1 dozen assorted roses with a free glass vase, $19.99, or upgrade to 2 dozen assorted roses with a premium vase for $9.99 more. 1-800-PRO-FLOWERS, 1-800-PRO-FLOWERS, or proflowers.com. Click on the blue microphone at the top hand corner and type in my name, Glenn. Proflowers.com. Click on the microphone, type in Glenn. Order today. Deal expires Friday at midnight.
If you're a baby boomer or senior, please listen closely to this important message. Politicians
politicians in Washington are quietly plotting to decrease your Social Security payments drastically, and they want to do it soon. In fact, despite rising prices at the gas pump, grocery store, and doctor's office, retirees have received a mere 1.3% annual increase to their Social Security checks. Meanwhile, food stamp recipients have seen their payouts increase over 30% under the Obama administration. That's shocking. So when we stumbled upon a weird trick that could add up to $1,000 to your monthly Social Security checks, we knew we had to share it with you. To get started, simply go to mybenefits511.com. Yes, it's true. You can take simple steps that could add up to $1,000 to your monthly Social Security payouts. Newsmax says mybenefits511.com is a critical resource for anyone over 50. Go to mybenefits511.com now. That's mybenefits511.com.
What you're about to hear is the fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
By now, much of the nation is familiar with the story of a 14-year-old kid named Isaac Lufkin, a young man who dreamt of playing professional football in the NFL despite the fact that he was born without any arms. We had him on TV last night. He was up at the Super Bowl as a guest of the NFL, and he also was part of his championship team, the state of Rhode Island. And he's a remarkable kid. Last night we had him on television, and I said, "So how do you deal with it?" And he said, "It's really not that it's not that hard. I don't like pity." And he opened up a can of Coke himself. He, turned on his computer and started, with Facebook here on the set. He just got down on the floor and started typing with his feet. It was really quite an amazing scene. I said, where did this come from? Your desire to just do it and not have any excuse. And he said, well, I have excuses when it comes to my chores. I don't want to do that. But my mom always reminds me of her famous phrase. And I said, what's her famous phrase? And his mom looked at him and said, go ahead. And he said, he rolled his eyes like any 14-year-old boy. I can't means I won't. And I said, one of these days you're going to thank God for your mom, because your mom is making you independent. Your mom is making you who you are today. And, you may not appreciate it at 14. And then I just threw in, and my mom passed away right around your age and didn't really appreciate it. Didn't appreciate her until it was too late. And then didn't really start seeing the wisdom of my parents until I was 30. Maybe you'll wake up a little earlier than that. So we finished this interview, and I say off the air, so where are you guys going now? And his mother said, well, we actually have to go to the hospital now. And I said, something going on? Are you guys okay? This was not shared because she didn't want to share this on the air last night. She wanted to make sure that the story remained about her son and his refusal to give up. When she's telling me this, I said, well, that's how I understand this story. I said, what are you going to the hospital for? Here's the story from The Blaze. Though she prefers not to discuss her own battles, the mother of two told The Blaze in a phone interview, by the way, she's a single mother, that she has successfully already battled cervical, uterine, and ovarian cancer, in addition to lymphoma. But she's now facing another challenge in her life. She has known that she has congestive heart failure for roughly 4 years, but was told on Christmas Eve that her condition is rapidly worsening. The medication is not working anymore. It's basically, at this point, a surgeon told me, get a heart transplant or you will have organ failure and die. She has already had 2 open heart surgeries, and she is scared of the implications of a heart transplant. My first initial reaction was, oh my gosh, I'm going to die because I'm not going to get a heart in time. I'm going to die in my sleep. But Lori knows even if she does get a heart in time, it's still a risky procedure, and it comes with a lifetime full of medications. Lori managed to stay clear-headed and positive because, quote, she has a deep-rooted faith in God and because she has unbelievable support system between her children and the rest of her family. Lori said Isaac has been her biggest supporter, telling her that she's going to make it and live to see him get married and play in the NFL. And on the day she comes home crying, Lori added, Isaac immediately cheers her up and tells her that she is strong and that it's just another walk in the park. Lori instilled in Isaac the line, I can't means I won't, from childhood. He has repeated it and repeated what I have taught him, which has meant a monumental amount to me as a mother. Lori added, I know how sick I am. They know how sick I am. That's why I force them to be so independent. This woman has known she's going to die early, and this is why she has told her son, you have to do it on your own. I'm not going to be here to dress you, son. I'm not going to be here to open up the cans of soda for you. So you're going to have to do it on your own. When I asked him, what is your dream? What would you like to do? And he said, I just like to be kind of a spokesperson to show people that all these people who say they can't do it, said they won't do it. I'd like to be a spokesperson who's saying, if I can do it, why can't you? This is one incredible story and an incredible mother. I would ask today that you would pray for her. Find this story, exclusive story on The Blaze. It should be posted in the next couple of minutes. What you didn't know about the mother of the armless athlete. Find that now. Is it up on The Blaze now? Yeah, find it and share it with a friend. I want to cover a few stories. We have Greg Abbott on with us at the top of next hour. But I want to talk about a few stories. I want to talk about the communist defense in Salon Magazine. I believe this is another one of our predictions come true. I said they're going to just say, yes, we're socialists. So what? We're communists. Communism isn't that bad. Socialism isn't that bad. Well, here it is. This is the second incident of this in the last, month? Maybe 2 months? It's going to start to snowball now. I want to talk to you a little bit about this crazy story with Woody Allen. Also, let me stop at this one. Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee is currently the lead person. What is the poll? 14% of Republicans say that they would vote for Mike Huckabee. He's number one. Number two is Rand Paul with, I think, 11%.
I think he's at 16. And yeah, number two is in second place at 11, but it's not Rand Paul. It's, who was it?
There's been a few polls, and they've kind of flip-flopped those top guys, but it's been typically Rand Paul, Chris Christie, and Huckabee. Chris Christie, since the scandal, has dropped off significantly.
I just saw a new one this morning. I don't know what poll it was, but I just saw a new one this morning. But it's Chris Christie below Rand Paul, and thank goodness Chris Christie has been exposed for who he is, and we all remember that as it comes close to election time. But Mike Huckabee, and I just want to make it really clear, I do have a personal experience with Mike Huckabee that we've talked about on the air before, and I just don't trust him. And others might trust him, and I have friends who trust him. David Barton trusts him. I just don't trust him, and he's not my guy by any stretch of the imagination. Beyond that personal thing, we've watched Mike Huckabee and watched what he's for, and he is a big government guy.
No question.
He has been a big guy. He was a big government guy when he is a progressive Republican, and he was that guy when he was in as governor. He's was that guy with the Mike Huckabee show. I mean, you just watch. He was fawning all over the First Lady.
Yeah.
and just loves a lot of her big government ideas. So he's a big government guy. Now, when David Barton was on, David said, I don't watch his show. And I said, well, neither do I, David, but I do. I mean, I pay attention to some of this stuff and some of the things that he is advocating. And I said, he's got to be for Common Core. And David said, no, he was for Common Core.
No, he is for Common Core.
But David said he was for Common Core.
Yeah.
I've spoken to him about it. He has been corrected, and he didn't know. And I just kind of looked at him like, well, that's a problem with judgment if at this point you didn't know. But David said he's been corrected. No, now that is looking to be a little untrue. And here's the story that broke yesterday.
Yeah, the story is that he is suggesting that we don't throw out Common Core, we simply rebrand it. So just change the name, keep it the same, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just change its name. So that's what he's advocating right now.
According to the Washington Post, at a recent meeting of the Council of Chief State School Officers, one of the organizers that created Common Core state standards, Huckabee urged the state education officials to get rid of the Common Core name because, and this is a quote, because it has become toxic. The Post indicates, however, Huckabee still intends to support the standards. Quote, refocus it, rebrand it, but don't retreat, end quote, according to the Washington Post. Huckabee's.
Does it sound like he had a change of heart? No.
It seems like he's understood the reality that people have woken up to Common Core, but he still wants it.
Yes, he does.
Quote, I don't support what Common Core has become in many states or school districts, Huckabee said. Look, I'm dead set against the federal government creating a uniform curriculum for any subject. I oppose the collection of personal data on students that would identify them and track them, and certainly any effort to give that personal information to the federal government, end quote. I'm steadfast belief in parents, and parents should ultimately decide the best venue for their schools and children's education, whether it's public school, private school, religious schools, or home schools, Huckabee added. Well, that's fine, Mike. But you can't say you're dead set against Common Core and then say just rebrand it in a secret meeting. Rebrand it, refocus, and don't retreat, end quote. It's a problem. Just want to bring that up. I know I'm an imperfect messenger on the Mike Huckabee front.
I'm not. I'm actually a perfect one on Mike Huckabee, and he sucks. And this is a good reason for it. I have no personal thing with him. It's all about policy with me, and he is not the guy you want. A lot of people like him because he's a good communicator. He's a charismatic guy.
He's a Christian guy.
Very good with faith.
Plays that up big time.
He is and those are reasons to also be wary. He is a charismatic guy.
Yeah, and
you
look,
don't want charismatic people at this point. You want people who are rooted in principles, and I don't trust his principles.
There's nothing wrong with charisma. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but
you've got to be rooted. Would I love that if I could get Ted Cruz to be a little more charismatic?
Right.
That would be great. Because he's rooted in principles that we all see and we have seen over a long period of time. This is what the guy believes. This is what the guy does. I don't think I can point to another politician in Washington. Maybe I shouldn't say that. There's a handful of politicians who are as strong as Ted Cruz and consistent over the years where they're not. I mean, as I'm saying this, the number keeps dwindling down. I mean, that is consistently on the Constitution. He is really good. Now, if you had some charisma behind that, that'd be great.
It's fine, yeah.
But
it's fine.
It's constitutional principles. You don't want somebody who is loose on constitutional principles and loose on, and we'll look somebody in the eye. Oh, sorry, my personal problem with Mike Huckabee is just giving me twitches right now. Somebody who can look someone in the eye and say one thing and then go behind closed doors and do the exact opposite. And that's exactly what has happened. If the Washington Post is to be believed, and I'm not usually one to put a lot of stock in the Washington Post, but when I have the Washington Post or Mike Huckabee, it's the Washington Post. because of the way he has behaved in the past and the policies that he has been for.
And people who like Mike Huckabee, you might be someone who's I would say that the audience that doesn't like Common Core and the people who do like Mike Huckabee, there's a major overlap there.
Major overlap.
And it's
major overlap.
You can't overlook the fact that the policy you've been fighting against for years and years and years, this guy has done a lot to embrace and work. I mean, look at what he's saying behind closed doors. That cannot make you feel comfortable. If you're a person who really doesn't like Common Core, how can you overlook something like that? We'll see.
You watch. The defense will be, it's a conspiracy against me. It's these Common Core people who are against me. It's the right-wing extremists. You watch.
Every single time.
He's the Mitch McConnells of the world. He's in the same bag as John McCain and all the rest of them. Let me go to Woody Allen now. I'm looking which clock is right here. Let me take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with Woody Allen, because this Woody Allen thing is absolutely infuriating. He's been nominated for another Oscar. Honestly, Hollywood, how do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? When you really start to put the Woody Allen story together, the Woody Allen story, I'm sorry, does not work on any level. And the same people that we don't trust on anything else are the ones ringing the bell and saying, you know what? He's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. Really? Help me out and let's just do this. Let's just look at the numbers. Forget the personalities. Can we just look at the numbers? And the numbers to remember, 9, 12, and 17. We'll give that to you.
And 2. Can we throw 2 in there?
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean, 2.
Let's throw 2 in
2, yes. 2, 9, 12, 17. Those are your lottery numbers, and they don't spell a big win.
Got something to say?
888-727-BECK.
Dial in
Hello, go ahead.
and let it out.
The Blaze Radio Network.
On air, online, in your pocket. Find out all the ways to listen at theblaze.com/radio.
All right, so let's chat here a little bit about Woody Allen. And, Woody Allen has not been...
He's not been convicted
He's not been convicted of anything. But who do we give the benefit of the doubt to? This is such a horrible, horrible charge. And it is easy to make this charge, but if it was just his daughter from a marriage where she, that's not dad, a daughter from a marriage that went awry, you might say
she's siding with mom and she's making up a crazy story or something.
Correct. So just based on that, you would say, okay, I don't want to get involved and let's not say anything. However, let's look at this. Let's look at this charge. She is saying that when she was little, Woody would bring her up to the attic and play, say, sit in front of the train set and lay down, and then he would do things to her while she was laying down on the train set. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And everybody is trying to use Sun Yi, his wife, as an example of, see, he's not doing anything because, he married his adopted daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, stop. Think of that one.
Yeah.
Married his adopted, but they weren't married. Mom and the adopted daughter. Mom wasn't married to Woody at the time. Like that, they try to make it like, no, but they weren't married. It was just this girl living.
They weren't blood relatives. Didn't he raise her from the time she was 2?
She was there.
Fell in love with her at 13, and then they married at 18.
Okay, so when the other daughter says at 9 he was fondling me, the difference between 9 and 13 really not that big. Really not that big. So he fell in love at 13.
This is
Didn't
the
do it to the
Glenn
other
Beck
girl.
program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
Don't miss a morsel of truth. Sign up for the free newsletter at glennbeck.com.
You know what's amazing is yesterday Dana was on The View and she did a fantastic job. But they hammer, I mean, they treat conservatives like they're zoo animals. Mm-hmm. They're like, so why would you possibly, I mean... Why would you go from liberal with such an enlightened mind to conservative? Ooh. How could that happen? And as soon as she starts to answer the question, you notice they're like, but specifically, what is? Oh, so irritating.
Yeah, they're all over you, and they act almost fearful. Like Dana was about to pull out a weapon and start attacking them. I mean,
they don't, because they don't know anybody like that. They don't know anybody like that. There's no diversity of thought in New York. There's none.
I mean, on that panel, you have Jenny freaking McCarthy. Jenny McCarthy is coming out and saying things that are way out of the mainstream all the time. And yet she's got a freaking role on the show every day. Mm-hmm. And yet Dana can't come in and say the Second Amendment of the Constitution is a good thing. It freaks them out. It really is strange.
No, it's bizarre. And then, so after treating Dana like like she should be behind some sort of glass because we might all catch this conservative disease that she has. Then Barbara Walters, looking as young and effervescent as she has at least in the last 150 years, said this about
Mia. So I know Mia. I have a good relationship with her. But I've been with Woody many times with his two daughters. He's got almost a 20-year-old marriage to Sun Yi, which started as a sensation. It's a solid marriage.
Started as a sensation. Why?
Why did it start as a sensation? Because he fell in love with her when she was 13.
And his daughter. His wife's or his girlfriend's
daughter. Forget it.
Daughter.
I'm not giving him this out. It's his freaking daughter.
Because she came in at 2, right?
Her. Yeah.
So she's Sun Yi, right?
I'm pretty sure she came in at 2.
Very young. She came in at 2. At 13, he discovers love her. I'm in love with her.
This is not a daughter thing.
Did he start to think maybe I have sexual feelings for her? At what point?
Exactly on her 18th birthday, Glenn. That's the day.
He said he fell in love with her at 13. He admits that.
And then they wait until she's 18. Okay. So how do we know? I mean, doesn't that send a pretty bad signal that maybe...
No, because this one was love.
I see.
Pat, I've been with Woody and Sun Yi many times.
And you've seen him with his children.
I've seen him with his children, and they've got a wonderful. Okay,
did you see him with Sun Yi before she was his wife?
It started out controversial.
No. It didn't start out controversial. It started out as a sensation.
Sensation.
This is your media at work. This is a woman who's covered politics for how many thousands of years? And look at the way she presents a guy marrying his daughter.
Yeah.
It started as a sensation.
Pretty bad.
That's her summary of that situation.
And why?
Oh, we don't know that.
No.
Why did she do it that way?
Why she did
this? People?
Because she likes him.
She likes him.
They've hung out in the same circles.
Yeah. He's a friend. He's a friend of a friend, and I've got friends who know him, and I've known him for a long time, and I know the situation, and so there's no... I got news for you, Pat. I've known you since 1989. Mm-hmm. You tell me that you started to have sexual feelings for a girl who was 13.
Oh.
And you marry her at 18. I'm not your friend.
No.
And then if the other daughter who lived under your roof said, Daddy molested me when I was 9, I believe them. And you're my friend. You're my best friend. I believe them.
Yeah, there are certain costs to having sex with your daughter, and one of those costs is losing the benefit of the doubt that you had sex with the other daughter.
Thank you.
You just are assumed to be guilty at that point. And look, it's not impossible that what he's saying is true, that,
Did she manufacture this
as
because
a nasty
she was
breakup,
jilted or whatever?
It's not impossible.
Yeah. Right.
However,
with
the evidence that you are married to your daughter, it doesn't help you.
I would give you the benefit of the doubt. I'd give you the benefit of the doubt that this 13-year-old daughter was somehow or another magically special, and you've never felt any other sexual feelings for a 13-year-old. I don't even know how I give you that.
You don't, but
Barbara
did.
If you've got another daughter who said I did it at 9, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. If it's one daughter and it's a horrible marriage and she's not your blood daughter, I'm going to say we should keep our eye on him. But have we investigated? Yes, we've investigated. So what are you going to do? The 13-year-old? I'm in love with a 13-year-old?
And
I mean,
the thing is, her brothers and sisters, all the siblings are like, yeah, he's a bad guy. He's just not a good guy. So are they all in on this conspiracy together? Maybe?
Oh, I don't know the siblings.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
that was
Ronan.
Ronan was...
now you have Dylan.
And by the way, we should point out, Ronan is a guy who is about to be, I guess, a new MSNBC personality. He's not a conservative. He's not some guy who's against Hollywood. His mom's Mia Farrow. This is a guy who...
I think he's a biological son, right, of Woody and Mia. I think he's an actual son.
I'm confused.
So.
It's a very confusing
so.
situation. And it gets confusing when you marry your daughter. That's when it becomes confusing. Everything gets confusing when you marry your daughter.
How old was Mia?
How
old was Mia when they got married?
They were never
when
married.
They started to get together.
I'm not sure.
They were together for what, 10 years though? Something in that general vicinity.
Yeah, so she must have been.
How old is Woody Allen now?
90?
And how old is Mia? Or Soon Yi?
Soon Yi? I have the impression Soon Yi's around 38.
Okay, he is literally, look him up. He's got to be in his late 70s.
Let's see.
Probably
That's
in that
probably
vicinity.
a good guess.
So
Late
it's
70s,
practically
early 80s.
pedophilia now.
I mean, look, if he married a 38-year-old at 70, I would not. It wouldn't even be notable enough for us to bring up. But when you marry someone you fell in love with at 13, it's notable to bring up.
How old was he when he married her?
56. 56. She was 19.
Holy cow!
I mean, come on.
Okay, so
now again, even let's put it this way, and this has happened in Hollywood many times. We've talked about it on the show. If a 56-year-old married a 19-year-old,
no way,
it might be notable, a passing story.
He's a spry 79.
If it was his daughter and they were 13 when they fell in love, that's a totally different line.
If you met
here.
somebody, if you're 56 years old and you meet somebody 19 because you're out, blah 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 blah. But this is somebody who you changed her diapers, you changed her pants, you changed her. You were there. At what point did you start having sexual feelings about her? At what point? There's no way. I'm sorry. I can't give. I'm trying to. The more you think about it, I'm like, okay, try to give him the benefit. No, there's no way. You can't give somebody the benefit of the doubt. It's his daughter.
Only someone like Barbara Walters could do it. And listen to her do this and think about what you'd have to assume that this is not true. I mean, think of the special company Woody Allen is in. He is a man who's married his daughter. This is not, you have crossed so many impossible lines that the same people who are giving him a benefit of the doubt won't let the guys from Duck Dynasty quote the Bible. Like it's insanity what liberals and progressives will put up with. Look at Roman Polanski. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. They'll put up with a guy who has admittedly raped a 14-year-old and they'll give him awards today. He's on the lam for raping a 14-year-old. Currently, as we speak, we're trying to get him back in the country to prosecute him. And they're like, oh, well, he did the piano.
Right, he was a genius.
Oh, he was a great filmmaker. Of course we're going to... I mean, look, he's had some issues, but and sure, he had that sensational issue with the 14-year-old, but I think he makes good movies. They will let anything go when it's their guy.
Yeah, if you're a liberal. If you're a progressive.
Well, that's why you get the worst of the worst on that side.
Yep.
Because if all you have to do is just side politically, have some talent, side politically, and you get away with murder. That's all you have to do. I mean, and look at the whole industry. Let me go to Hoffman here for a second. My daughter said, I don't understand, Dad, why people why people in Hollywood don't go after, how did this happen? And I said, I'll explain it to you. Insurance. What? Let me explain it to you when we come back.
Stimulate all your senses.
The Blaze.
.com/TV.
The Blaze Radio Network. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
So I said yesterday about Philip Seymour Hoffman that what's sad is how Hollywood just doesn't care. They really don't care about anything but their money and their movies and everything else, because anybody would have seen this train wreck coming and they would have distanced themselves. Now, new information since yesterday, we found out his wife did and said she left him and said, I know what's going on and I'm done. However, my daughter said to me last night, Dad, how come nobody said anything? Do you think people knew? And I said, absolutely. You can't be around somebody who's using heroin for a long period of time, especially when you're in the midst of really working and not have any clue. And they said, well, the first clue they had was that he was sleepy. Bull crap.
He was sleepy.
Bull crap. You would see that in somebody. It's you're not smoking pot. It's heroin. And so he's on the set, and here's my guess on how many people knew. And it's all based on insurance. The insurance companies, to make a movie like this, you have to have massive insurance because you got $100 million in production, $150 million in production. You have all of these people's schedules lined up. You have the entire franchise of Hunger Games. They're 6 weeks away from finishing this. Guarantee he's on the set, and let's say they don't figure out until halfway through. Somebody says, look, man, there is a problem. He is using drugs. Guarantee there were arguments between people, between Hoffman's people and the movie people. And Hoffman's people are like, he is not using drugs, and how dare you even say that, and blah, 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 blah. Look, man, you get your guy into shape. That's what was happening, because there is insurance on top of it. So now they're 6 weeks away. I will bet you nobody on the production even took pause to think about him dying. That production went into overdrive. Figure out how you're going to do this now with him, a main character in the next two films, a main character, so we don't have to go back and have the insurance company pay out, what, $100 million? To reshoot this whole damn thing. How are you going to finish critical scenes, perhaps? You're going to shoot him from behind and get a celebrity voice to do his, impersonator, to do his voice? How are you going to do it? I can guarantee you when they heard the news, they were probably already, if I'm the producer and I know this is going on, if I'm in Washington, I'm in Hollywood and I'm part of that system and I know something's going on, I immediately say to my directors and my writers or whoever, I bring my inner team in and I say, look, you can't prove anything. You know and I know that he's using. And that's not going to end well. And I'll be damned if we put our movie at stake because of this guy. It's too late to get him off of the project. You start working on ways to get around him right now. But this has everything to do with money. The reason why he's not, he died is because there were people on the set that probably said, but not because of him, probably said, you get him under control. And the minute you go into rehab, your insurance goes up. Keep the costs down. So there, even on the movie side, they weren't just doing it just because, they didn't want to reshoot everything. They want their insurance premiums down. So I can guarantee you, they probably weren't even telling, keep it between us. The insurance company can't even know about this. Guarantee it. High numbers of people that were working with him had to have known this. And they just kept going because everybody's job is at stake. It's the way it is. I mean, let me ask you this. With as many people that we employ 300 people. If I were out of control like that, Do you think that would happen here? Would people be going like, just keep it quiet? Just keep it quiet.
You could go back in your own history and find a time where you were working at a place and you were out of control. Maybe not to the Philip Seymour Hoffman degree, but you went through a period where you were out of control. What did people do around you?
Pat?
I mean, Pat obviously was supplying the liquor.
Yeah, that's all
Pat
I
was
did.
Pat was the only friend. Pat was the only friend that was saying, "Doesn't have to be this way, buddy. Doesn't have to be this way."
But were most people just like,
yeah,
they rolled their eyes.
All the booze I bought was for nothing. Is what you're telling me. Pat's
yeah.
the only friend.
Pat's the only friend.
Okay.
Although I will say, unlike Philip Seymour Hoffman, Glenn never showed up at work that way.
Yeah, no, I was never
did that at work.
I think he was a little surprised on how bad it was when he found out, because I was very high functioning alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Back in just a second.
The Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network. What you're about to hear is the fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
We are very fortunate to live in the great state of Texas. This is the state that is leading the nation in recovery. In fact, one of the only states that actually is recovering. And in fact, I even hate to say it that way. Texas hasn't needed a recovery because Texas, you are still free. It is still the Republic of Texas, and they understand it better than most places. I am gravely concerned about the state of Texas because, as Pat and I talked about a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, before we moved down here, one of the reasons we moved down here is because we saw a story out of El Paso where you can't teach that the Alamo, you can't teach it anymore because it's considered racist. Are you kidding me? There's a group of patriots sticking up for the Mexicans so they can be free. That's what that's what that whole thing was about. And if we lose the great state of Texas, we lose the rest of the republic. And there is a huge push to turn Texas blue. Wendy Davis is one of them, but the money that is pumping into this state to turn it like California or to do to Texas what they did to Colorado is happening in a big way. And one of the guys, to quote Wendy Davis, who is, or to paraphrase her, who is standing against that, is Greg Abbott. He is running now for governor of Texas, and we welcome him to the show now. When how are you?
Glenn, I'm doing great. Such an honor to be with you.
Thank you. You are you're a guy. When Wendy Davis said, the joke, she meant it that you wouldn't stand. You're in a wheelchair, and we wondered. So, are you a kind of guy that has fun with that, takes offense at that, or what?
I typically start out almost every speech I give making some kind of joke about me being in a wheelchair. My slogan is, in this campaign, Texans need to roll with Greg, roll towards victory. But I have some great stories. When I tell people about the accident, I was a young man. I was 26 years old when I was out jogging and a big tree fell on me. It crashed down into my back, crushing my vertebrae and my spinal cord. And that is what has left me in a wheelchair. But typically when I tell stories like that, people are shaking their heads wondering, how slow was I jogging to get hit by a falling tree? but there's something more powerful that I lead this into, because these doctors in Houston, where I was living at the time, They pieced my life back together by fusing my vertebrae back together, and then they inserted steel rods into my back that will remain in my back the rest of my life. The point, Glenn, is that you've spoken to countless politicians who say that, if they're elected, they'll go into office, and when they have to make the tough decisions, they will have a spine of steel. I really do have a steel spine that I use to fight for Texans every single day.
I don't want to harp on this, but I just want to point out one thing. We have Greg behind a desk now because we're up on a platform, and I'm not handy capable here, I guess. And so we put him at a desk, but I was struck by behind me is the set of the Oval Office, and the only reason why that desk looks the way it does, you know why that door is on front of that desk, the Oval Office desk?
Probably because of FDR.
Yeah, he didn't want to be seen in a wheelchair. How different are things now? I can't even imagine a time when we wouldn't elect a president because he was in a wheelchair, and they still don't want to show that even at the memorial. They still barely even show just a little bit of a wheel on him.
And, that's very disappointing. But Texans may be different than the rest of Americans. What Texans believe in, you talked about the Alamo at the very beginning. Texas got its birth as a known country of its own independent nation, and then as a state of the United States, because we had to fight and overcome adversity. Overcoming adversity is part and parcel of what it means to be a Texan. So having a attorney general, as I am now, or having a candidate running for governor who has faced adversity, overcome adversity, is a quintessential trait of what it means to be a tough Texan.
I really, truly believe, first of all, you've described your job as I get up in the morning and I go and sue Barack Obama and I go home. If Texas doesn't stand, we're in trouble. And the government, we had Ted Cruz on, who used to work for you, earlier today, and he went over the lawsuits and the things that we've had to file here in Texas just to keep the federal government from literally taking over in Wyoming. The federal government, the EPA, just took 1 million acres of their land. How out of control is the federal government, and why should we actually believe that we can win this fight?
Well, I got to see a copy of the materials that Ted Cruz filed, and it reads pretty much like my biography, because it is a listing of some of the lawsuits that I filed against the Obama administration for the past 5 years. Altogether, already, I've sued Barack Obama and his administration 33 times.
How many times have you won?
The final record, because there's so many cases still pending, is something like 10 victories, 5 losses. In some are mixed, like in the Obamacare case, for example. We won on our states-based issue, saying that the Obama administration and Congress violated the Constitution by forcing Texas to expand its Medicaid system, contrary to what we may want to do. However, the case was a loss because Chief Justice Roberts recharacterized Obamacare as the Obama tax. But here's the point that you're trying to draw, and that is, in my adult life and during my studied life, I have never seen a president so cavalierly contradict and refuse to apply the Constitution and the laws of this country like we have the Obama administration. I wish I didn't have to sue the president a single time, because I wish we had a president who would follow and obey the law, but we don't.
Give me some example. How many times did Texas sue George W. Bush? I know we did it with the case on the World Court.
The World Court, the Medellin case. There was another case involving I think it involved the Department of Interior, the ability of tribes to be involved in the process of the gaming industry, and there may have been a third one. It was either 2 or 3 times during the 8 years
and
of the Bush.
That's about a normal, for Bill Clinton, it was probably about the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
Are other states doing this too, General Abbott, or is it just Texas? Are other states fighting for their sovereignty as strongly as you were fighting for Texas?
Well, Texas has the most lawsuits that have been waged against the Obama administration. However, our fellow states are involved in this process also. Maybe not as high numerically, but certainly in spirit. And some of them have joined together with us in some of these fights. Others, maybe not so much. There is one factor that has elevated Texas even higher than other states, and that's the lawsuits against the completely out-of-control EPA. And because Texas is such a centerpiece of the energy production in this country, is a reason why Texas has more legal actions against the EPA.
So let me go here. I just gave a speech to the GOP this last weekend, and I pretty much read them the Riot Act. I mean, they're good members of the GOP, but I mean, in the national GOP, it's despicable what's going on. You got to stand for the Constitution, but here in Texas, there is a real concerted effort from the left to do what they did to California and do what they did to Colorado to Texas. And I don't see a lot of Texans walking around in the streets saying, we could lose our state. I mean, what they did to the rest of the country, where it just slowly seeps in and you just don't even recognize it until it's too late, is happening right now. And are there enough Texans that are saying, whoa, this is a real problem?
Glenn, I announced that I was running for governor of Texas back in July. And month after month after month, I've been involved in a pitched battle against a very profound opponent. And my opponent's name was complacency. A lot of Texans did not realize that there really was this pitched battle because they thought, well, Texas is a conservative state. We will always be a conservative state. And they were asleep about the fact that the Obama administration itself is working with the Democrat candidate for governor. Barack Obama's national field director, Jeremy Byrd, is here in the state of Texas organizing neighborhoods and precincts to turn out the vote like they did in Colorado, like they did in Ohio. Barack Obama's finance director is helping to raise money. Barack Obama's pollster is working for the Democrat candidate. Barack Obama's campaign team is helping to manage the campaign. This is the Barack Obama administration that is basically relocated to the state of Texas to make Texas more like his liberal dream version of what the United States should be. This is extremely dangerous. There will be millions of dollars spent in this race, a lot of it raised from states outside of Texas that want Texas to become more like California.
So I've said this to Rick Perry for a long time. He's going and he's doing a great job bringing new businesses here. But as I spoke to a group of CEOs here in Dallas, I said, you guys know why you moved here. But do the employees that you brought with you, do they know? Because all they did is they said, the company's moving to Texas. And most likely their wife said, Texas? I don't want to live in the sticks with a bunch of cows. And they're like, no, honey, it's not like that. And they moved. They had no real connection to, we can't do business in California or wherever they're moving from. And I've begged Rick, you've got to do a campaign. Come to Texas, not for the taxes or the weather. Come to Texas because you're free. You're free to pursue your own dreams. Are you concerned about the influx of people? Because I tell you, these carpetbaggers that just move in at the last minute. I'm worried. I'm more worried at times about the northern border than I am the southern border. Are you concerned that people are coming in because of the jobs and they don't really understand Texas?
Part of our campaign is talking about securing the border. And we're talking about the Red River, not the Rio Grande River, when we do that. But, let me give you one example that ties all this together. It's an example I talk about in my presentations. It's about Jay Adair, who is a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business called Coparts, who moved from California here to the DFW area. And he was talking about why he did it, and that's because taxes were too high, regulations too high in California. But he said that when he got here, he realized that Texas had one thing that Californians did not, and that was freedom. We have a freedom that's incomparable around the country. But he said that the people that he's bringing here from California to work believe in that freedom. They love that freedom. The gun manufacturers that I've talked to from other states that are fleeing those other states because their ability to either manufacture, sell, or have their customers use guns in those states is being trimmed. These are conservatives who are relocating from these other states to the state of Texas because Texas is the last bastion of freedom in this country. I have
a story that I'll probably be sharing in the next month based around the Second Amendment that I think will blow people's minds, that I've kept my mouth shut for quite some time. But even in Texas, we love our guns, but it's not just because we're hunters. It's because we have a right to carry our guns. There's a reason the Soviets didn't have an invasion plan through Texas, because we knew our rights, we knew our Constitution, and we had our guns. What are you going to do to make sure that we don't lose the Second Amendment, no matter what the rest of the country might do?
Well, I've already been involved in 2 fights at the United States Supreme Court defending and guaranteeing the individual right to keep and bear arms. But we're even looking at laws in the state of Texas to find ways that we can even more broadly expand your guaranteed Second Amendment rights. One thing that I've talked about in my platform for governor is bringing open carry to the state of Texas, because it is a guaranteed right under the Second Amendment.
I love that.
That's great. Your opponent, Wendy Davis, which I can see as being an attractive opponent if you were running for Senate in Massachusetts. She would make sense in a state like that, where they like when their candidates make up things in their biographies. But also, in addition to that, she's known as a national person because of her stance on abortion. And as a guy who comes from the Northeast, and I'm new to Texas, that stance, as she's described and as she stood up for it, seems completely out of step with the people I know in Texas.
I have a hard time believing she's even a serious candidate, which is not a good place to be, because the money and the power behind her makes her a very serious candidate. But who's she appealing to?
Let me go to both questions, but Glenn, let me answer yours first, and that is, she is a very serious candidate for 2 big reasons. One, because you have the Barack Obama machinery at a national scale working to both fund and organize her campaign. You remember when Barack Obama ran both times, he had what I call mystery money. He would get seemingly hundreds of millions of dollars through these online contributions that came out of nowhere to fund his campaign. Wendy Davis is getting the same thing in contributions that are too low to be able to report, but more than 70,000 low-dollar donations that add up to millions of dollars for. But secondly, at the other end, you have a big-time trial lawyer in Texas who gave her one check for $1 million. And he said there's a lot more where that came from. So the money and the organization are there to make her a very serious candidate. But on the other issue, the thing that Wendy Davis is known for more than anything else is standing for one issue,
abortion.
And that is late-term abortion.
Thank you.
Her stance is contrary to the vast majority of Americans, and what a lot of Americans don't understand, her stance is contrary to the country of France. Her position,
wow.
If France, they will not allow abortion in the late term the way that Wendy Davis is seeking.
Is she for partial birth abortion too?
Well, what Texas did in this last legislative session was to pass the fetal pain law, so that when a fetus can feel pain, when a doctor is trying to abort the fetus, we're saying, no, that's where we absolutely are going to draw the line.
She won't even draw that line.
No, she's against stopping abortion, even though a fetus can visibly show signs of feeling pain.
That is unbelievable.
The law passed in Texas says that after 5 months of pregnancy, a woman cannot have an abortion unless the health and safety of the mother is involved.
And that's a restriction that is more lenient than Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
Greg is going to be on with me at 5 o'clock. We'll have a little bit more of chance to chat with him. We wish you all the best of luck. What's your website?
GregAbbott.com.
Okay, easy. GregAbbott.com. And this is a fight for the whole country because millions are pouring in from the left. And if Greg sounds like somebody that you can support, if you would like to help support Texas remaining free and Texas, I'm telling you, if we lose Texas, we lose the country. Greg, we'll talk to you at 5 o'clock, after 5 o'clock today.
The Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
Good news. Sandra Fluke, or however you pronounce her name, she's running for Congress in California. Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
That's so great.
Even better, she's going to win. Because
she is going to win. Well, because she's really strong on having all the free sex she wants on the government. And having birth control provided to her, which is great.
She's known for that one thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yes, it is. So, congratulations, California. You're going to replace Henry Waxman, maybe, probably, with her. You deserve everything you get.
The Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
Glenn
Beck. Let's do the communists first. Here's a Salon magazine, and I believe this is. If you didn't think the last time, about a month ago, that it was a fulfillment of a prediction that I made when I was at Fox, I said, "There's going to come a time when they're so arrogant and so out of control." And they're going to just start saying, you know what? Yeah, okay, so we are a socialist. So we are communists. Here's Salon magazine. This is the second time this has happened in the last 60 days. Far-left magazine Salon published a stunning defense of communism on Sunday, revealing what it claims are 7 huge misconceptions about communism and capitalism.
It's about time. Finally somebody's clearing this up.
Yeah, I mean, they're pushing back on the claim that communism has killed as many as 110 million people.
Did you read the defense of it too?
No, I did. I couldn't.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
What is the defense?
Okay. Yeah, but a lot of the people that they killed were communists.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, I did read that.
So it's communists killing communists, so it's okay.
Oh, right. Well, communists aren't people.
I didn't realize they weren't people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not 110.
I don't
only
mind
60
then.
million.
And then they also go on to say, Mao, yes, he had his policies caused a famine. That's killed a lot of people, but famine is not purely a left-wing disease or a left-wing.
No, look at the famine caused by capitalism here.
Oh, yeah, that's been horrible.
It's been. Yeah.
But the other part,
I say, famine. I think the coming famine is going to be blamed on capitalism because we have farms that are in serious trouble in California. They are in real trouble, and why? Because they're going to say it's a drought and blah blah blah. It is water restrictions through the EPA and everything else. It's being orchestrated. You've got farmland that is drying up and blowing away in California.
And look, there are issues. We're not talking 60 million person famine here or 20 million.
Yeah, but famine is something that is in the entire world, and it's usually weather driven. But that's not Mao's famine.
That's the issue here. While famine isn't, as they put it, a uniquely left-wing problem, no, it's not. But government-caused intentional famines tend to be.
Yes.
And this has happened over and over again. Soviet Union did it as well as it happened in Zimbabwe as well. Certainly, it's happened over and over.
And here's my favorite. The communism that killed all those people, which he denies they killed, except they did kill him. And he really doesn't deny that they were killed. It's just that some of the people killed were also communists. But
that makes it better.
I know. But here's what I love, because this is always the case. the communism of that time won't be the communism of now. We're going to do it better this time. Yep. It's going to be new, improved communism.
You know what?
That's
we are
what
on
they
the
think
road. We
every
are on
time.
the road to communism right now. Are you not seeing? Are you not seeing the hatred?
Yep.
Are you not seeing if you don't go my way, it's the highway? That there's no room for people like you. I mean, it's all here. It's all here. So what? Are they going to magically get better? This is where we're starting, and it's not a utopia. It's you. If you disagree with us, you're a Holocaust denier. If you disagree with us, you're a racist. If you disagree with us, you have no place in our state, no place in our country, no place in our society.
The debate is settled. I mean, isn't that what Mao and Stalin and Lenin said?
Tell me that you end up in a happy place with what you heard Greg Abbott saying about Wendy Davis. The fetus feels pain. I don't care. Kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait. What? That's your starting point, gang. That's your starting point. The people who will bring you communism, there's your starting point. They're all rallying around that idea. I don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah. I like this one, too. Only one of the points they say is wrong about communism is that only communist economies rely on state violence. Now, they're not the only one that rely on state violence. They're just the best at it. They're really good at state violence.
And why? Because the state has so much authority and power.
Yeah.
That's why.
The other one is totalitarianism.
Right.
And that's, I mean, that could be fascism. That could be religious totalitarianism.
It's all left-wing ideology.
It's whenever the state has complete power.
Yeah.
And no, it's not. It's left and right is, again, left and right, it should go up and down. The ideology doesn't matter. It's the control of the state that is 0 to 100. You know, totalitarianism is at 100. And communism is at 100. You can be, I mean, I wouldn't say that the mullahs over in Iran are left-wingers. They're right-wingers.
They're not, but...
Government-wise, I'd say they are.
No, but you're talking about the size of state. I'm talking their
ideology.
ideology.
We've had this discussion before, though, because you think conservatives can be big government. I don't think so. I think by definition, conservatives are small government people. And if you're a big government person, you're not conservative.
Mike Huckabee, you're saying he's
not
a conservative?
Not a conservative.
He's not a conservative.
You would have people
Absolutely
disagree.
not.
Oh, you definitely
people disagree.
They just be wrong.
And so,
they
have
that right in this country to be wrong.
The way that you keep people from being confused and say, because they'll say, he is too a conservative. He believes in God. He believes in the Ten Commandments. He believes in blah, 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 blah. And I'm a conservative. He's a conservative. To try to get people to say he's not a conservative is almost impossible. To get people to say, yes, he's a conservative progressive. He's a conservative that believes in big government. Though that's your danger. It's not. I'm not afraid of liberals. I don't have a problem with liberals. Liberals that want to control my life, my church, my state, my school, everything else, I got a problem with.
Yeah.
Just as much as I have a problem with Mike Huckabee coming in and trying to control my life, my church, my schools, and everything else. No.
Yeah, one of the 70,000 diagrams we've drawn on television over the years to explain this concept was you have a left and right scale, and that kind of states certain things about you, but there's also sort of an up and down scale. And the higher you go is the more government power to enforce whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You might say it's a theocracy in Iran, or if it's some crazy liberal communist idea in North Korea. But you need that huge government to implement any one of those ideas. And so at that point, it almost doesn't matter which idea they're pushing.
Right.
It's always bad.
This is the split now with the GOP. The GOP, if you look at the GOP, you'll hear people like Newt Gingrich and Mike Huckabee, and they'll say great things, and you're like, yeah, that's right, because they're appealing to your ideology, and they are going against the ideology of Barack Obama, but they want to enforce it with a big state. No. This is the split. The split is happening right now, and who would have ever thought it was going to be driven by former Republicans, not former Democrats, but former Republicans. Former Republicans are coming out and saying, I don't want the big state. I don't want it. Conservatives, I don't want the big state. There is something happening right now, and it is the collapse of the systems. Big religious institutions that are saying, it's my way or the highway. You're going to be in our church, or you're not saved and you're all going to burn in hell. You're going to be able to continue to keep some of the people that you have, but it will dwindle and dwindle and dwindle until it'll die out. Or you can say, we're for principles, and we align ourselves with these principles with anybody. And we also have some other things over here that are unique to our theology, but we will unite with people of principle. Well, then you at least stay connected to the rest of people who think like you, because there's a lot of people who think like you. But then once you say, and it's my way or the highway, you're done. You become this island. Well, you don't want to become an island. You want to be able to get people through the doors and, take it for a test drive and everything else and let them decide. And what's happening is the GOP and the DNC, they're all saying, look, you come in here and it's my way or the highway. And if you're not intellectually pure, and some libertarians do this too, if you're not intellectually pure, you don't belong here. Well, there are more people that don't belong in the Democratic Party, Republican Party, and the ideologically pure and enforceably pure Libertarian Party. There are more people that don't belong than do belong. So why wouldn't you say, look, these principles, we all agree. What? We're going for these principles. And how you decide to apply them in your life, you might pick that church or that candidate, and I might not. But let's just strengthen those principles and all move in that direction. That's the future.
It's hard to find common principles, though, with someone who is making an argument like, here's the 7 things you don't understand about communism.
No, you can't.
I mean,
there are some people that,
some people you just have to say,
right.
But this is not, Salon is not some crazy thing. This is something that the mainstream, the Barack Obamas of the world, in an office and out of office behind him, they all read Salon.
Oh, yeah.
This is a mainstream. This is not some crazy publication.
Why I say the prediction that I made at Fox is coming true, because look, if it was if it was communism, communism is great.org, you'd be like, okay, that's not. But this is mainstream. Yeah, this is mainstream.
And one of their defenses that Pat pointed out is, well, next time it'll be different. And they always point to this.
What they think every time,
right? But it's like Mao was only notable for his communism because he was really good at it. Like, when other leaders have seen these policies in action and millions of people have died, they've bailed on them. Yeah. He just stuck with it. Well, that's the only reason you have tens of millions dead. And you see North Korea is another example. They stuck with it. The Soviet Union has bailed. They stuck with it. North Korea is what the Soviet Union would have been by now.
Soviet Union would have, if they could keep it going.
If they could have kept it going.
If they could have kept it going economically.
And every communist thinks, I'm going to do it better than the last. Stalin thought he could do it better than Lenin.
Yeah.
And did he? Well, you probably killed as many or more people, yeah. So by that measure, yes, you did it better. Because that seems to be the end result every single time of communism, is how many people you can be responsible for murdering.
That's why the Nazis and the Golden Dawn Party are going today. You're not going to resurrect Hitler. No, we'll do it better than Hitler.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do it more efficient.
Yes,
we'll be better at it. We
won't do what he did. Well, of course you will. Because that's the end result every single time man takes that kind of power onto himself.
Remember what the FBI agent said, when he infiltrated the Weather Underground, where they talked about, yes,
we'll have to kill 25 million people.
Going to have to kill 25 million people. We have to do it, because you're going to have to kill 25 million people in this country to get the rest of them to shut up.
No, we'll try to re-educate them. We'll try to change them, but if they can't, we'll kill them.
Right. And so remember, those are the people. That's Bill Ayers and his group. So that's 25 million people. That's half of what Mao did. That's half. That's 4 times what Hitler did. And they don't have a problem with it. Yeah, 25 million people are going to have to die. Whoa.
Well, if it brings utopia, it's worth it. That's what they think.
That's what they believe. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why Mao didn't stop. He was like, no, this farm policy,
it will work.
It will work. Yes, but the people are starving to death. It doesn't matter. It will work in the end, and it will be better for everybody in the end. So you're going to have to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Right.
And that's why communism and fascism and totalitarianism, because once you don't respect the individual, once the individual is expendable, even if there's pain, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, these things make sense. It's a great leap forward.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network. The Glenn Beck Program returns.
Okay, so here's something. O'Reilly had an interview that said the president said, 3 million people have signed up for Obamacare, right?
With O'Reilly, yeah, that's
with
what
O'Reilly.
he said. Yeah.
Didn't he just last week in the State of the Union said 9 million people did?
Yes, he did. 6 million people have lost their health care since they got it.